In the past 7 years, since I left the corporate life of an accountant, I traveled the world in search for experiences, friendships, and answers. I started off as an English teacher and shared some special memories with good friends and happy children. I then pursued the monastic life as a Buddhist monk in Taiwan and learned the ancient Buddhist teachings from great masters and teachers. After 2 years, I decided to continue my journey into Thailand, where I met the love of my life and we established a school together to spread the joys of learning to hundreds of students. Now I'm back in Australia where it all began, but this time full of inspiration, experience, and a greater sense of purpose. In my travels, I learned one truth, that everyone has something special to live for and a worthy message to share. My purpose is to reveal the treasure within us all and to show how precious life truly is. Join me on my podcast, and together, let's shine mindfulness into the beautiful lives of everyday people. Let's go! Hello everyone, I'm Byron from Mindful Personal Training, and today I've got a very good friend Jeremy here to introduce himself and also share his life journey and experiences so that we can all learn vicariously through him. How's it going, Jeremy?
Awesome, Byron. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, good. Me too. Very excited because this is the first podcast of MPT. And so to set the context for the podcast, I'm going to briefly introduce Jeremy to the viewers, and then you can maybe add on what I've missed after that. How's that sound? Okay, so I've had the pleasure of working very closely with Jeremy over the past year as we've been working on programs and courses together, Academy of Infinite Mindset, to deliver mindfulness workshops to children so that they can increase their motivation, increase their purpose, and decrease anxiety. And so, in fact, today we actually did a 2-hour workshop with high schoolers and primary schoolers in Chatswood as well. Besides being a mindfulness teacher, Jeremy is also a chartered accountant at Arnott and a performance coach who's helped many people around the world transform their lives. Jeremy is also very passionate in growth mindset, like myself, and he's constantly developing himself in all facets of life. Jeremy is also very good at public speaking and can articulate his thoughts and ideas very eloquently. But most importantly, Jeremy is a very kind, friendly, and authentic man, very good friend, and that's the Jeremy I know. So Jeremy, now it's your turn. How would you describe yourself and the work that you do?
Wow, so that's really a humbling introduction. So thank you very much for that, firstly, Byron.
Thank you.
And I guess before I talk about myself, I want to reflect back to you. You're also definitely one of the most humble, kind, and authentic people that I know as well. So
thanks, Jeremy.
Which is why it's such a real pleasure and blessing to be your first guest on this podcast, but then also to be spending so much time with you on the projects that we've been working on. So yeah, I think that was a great introduction. So you shared kind of all of the different areas that I work in. And so at the moment, if I was to kind of try to wrap it up into a bundle of what it is that I do that touches across each of those areas that you talked about, the way that I would describe it is really helping people and teams to perform at their best, to thrive amidst uncertainty and change. So with the work that I do at Arnott, for example, so I do that a couple days a week on a digital transformation project.
Yeah.
It involves AI, machine learning, big transformation, big changes to the way people work. And so that's been very interesting to see that the impact that has on the people, and then what that could look like moving forward as well in terms of how to work amidst that technological, environmental change, and not just be able to work through it, but be able to thrive and perform at our best. And that's a common theme that I take into my performance coaching work with my clients as well. As you've mentioned, I like to say that I've worked with people from every continent in the world, except for Antarctica, of course. So any Antarcticans, please hit me up. And then also similarly with the work that we're now doing with younger students, primary school, high school age students, basis around mindfulness principles and other frameworks in order to be able to really thrive, perform at their best amidst all of the change and uncertainty that's going on around them. It kind of seems like with the amount of pandemic and technological change and all that sort of thing that the kids are dealing with these days, it's very different to how it was when we went to school, and it's really a lot.
Yeah.
So seems like now more than ever before is this kind of work needed.
Yeah. So it's obvious that there's a lot of change and uncertainty happening in the world right now, and this is an age where we need tools and techniques to manage through these times. And so as a coach and teacher, what are the key values that are important to you, and how is it reflected in your work?
Yeah, great question. So, when I think about values, I think about what are those key recurring areas that are most important to me that I then kind of structure my life and my work around. And so when I think about what my top 3 values are, that then they show up and shine through essentially everything that I do. Number 1 is teaching. Number 2 is always learning. And then number 3 is having great and deep relationships.
Yeah, nice.
And so when I talk about teaching and learning, I can get a little bit more specific in terms of teaching about and learning about the nature of our mind and how that impacts our body and how we feel. And then that determines, how we show up, how we perform. Right, so if I think about in the context of the work that I do as a coach in those different areas that I talked about, well, that ticks off all 3 of my values. That's why I love what I do, in that it allows me to spend time teaching people. It allows me to spend time learning more about those areas as well, and then it allows me to have really deep and meaningful relationships and connections with the people that I work with as well.
And so that's actually why we work very hard to help people understand their values very clearly, very quickly, so that they can align their actions, their work, their lifestyles with their values, so that everything that they do is aligned. And if it's not aligned, it's very obvious. And so the next question would be, in the role that you play as a teacher and coach, what are the main energies and intentions you have to bring to perform at your desired level?
I would say that the key energy that I go into my coaching conversations with is one of service, of course, first and foremost, right? Like the reason that I'm there and the reason that I do the work that I do and you do the work that you do is, it's not so much for me, but at the end of the day, it's because we want to help people. Right? And so definitely first and foremost, there is that energy of service. And then there's also a slightly different frame that I like to apply, being that the intelligence or the wisdom is in the client or the person that I'm working with. So oftentimes in the work, it's asking questions and guiding them to come to the realization or the insight for themselves, rather than purely teaching or giving them a line to remember or an exercise to do or something like that. So I would say to sum that up, that the 2 primary energies or frames that I adopt in my work is number 1, service, and number 2, the frame that the intelligence or wisdom is already within the client, and then the game is to basically guide them to see that for themselves, right? I love the analogy that was given to, I think it's Michelangelo, if he made the statue of David. When someone asked him, how did you create the statue of David? Like, what was your process? His answer was, well, it was easy. You started with the block of rock, and all I did was chip away all that was not him.
Yeah, wow.
So in a lot of respects, I see parallels with that creative artistic process with the work that we do as a coach, teacher, or mentor, in seeing that piece of art or that statue of David already within anyone and everyone. And then the game is to guide and chip away all that is not them and all that does not serve them, so that they can reveal to themselves, that intelligence and that wisdom.
Yeah, wow. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm so motivated to do this podcast in the first place. Because in my travels, I realized that everyone has something special to live for, something worthy to share, and that everyone also has their own intelligence, their own wisdom and lessons, that the answers are all within. And sometimes all it takes is a little bit of revealing what it is or removing the stuff that obstruct and then just allowing the truth inside to come out. So awesome stuff. If we go on to the last part, which is if people are interested in what you do or they want to know what it's like to live a life of a coach or teacher or mentor, what are some feelings and emotions to expect with this type of lifestyle?
So it's interesting that we talk about feelings or emotions because we've talked about this at length before in terms of differentiating and discerning the two. So just to unpack a little bit without going too deep, right? The emotion being that kind of raw sensation that we experience in the body first, followed by the feeling, which is then at the level of the mind that then processes those sensations and then attaches a feeling to it, right? So in terms of the type of work that I do and the types of feelings or emotions that generates or brings in for me, the one that I want to say, and this, you can say this is a bit of a cop-out answer, but first and foremost, it's one of moving towards objectivity and balance. So rather than trying to move towards too much of one side, whether it's really high energy or high excitement or high enthusiasm, it's more of seeing if I can stay relatively centered, right? As often as possible, in and out of coaching conversations, right? So just as a day-to-day practice, that's where things like my meditation practice or the stretching that you've gotten me into and yoga and that sort of thing, just helping me remain and feel more centered and more balanced so that I'm not feeling the swings all the way to the negative side that I used to feel many years ago, or the then complementary opposite swings to the opposite side of the overly positive and like over excitement, if you will. So I think what's been helpful for me, both in and out of the coaching context, is to see whether I can stay as close to a centered and balanced feeling state, so that I don't feel those unnecessary negative emotions as much as I used to do. Yeah,
it's very interesting because a lot of the times we can see that people's performance or their emotional states are they're very big swings. And so when that happens, we can see the consequences of that. Sometimes they're in a reactive mode. And so as a teacher, sometimes we see other teachers who are equally reactive themselves, which is why it's important for teachers, for coaches, and for mentors to be the centered person that can remove or reduce the swings in others. Because otherwise, is that the reason why you're placing a lot of emphasis on remaining centered throughout the day, is so that you can provide a better quality service to your clients? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's fundamentally true, that adage that goes, you can't take someone you haven't gone yourself. And I think that's so true in the type of work that I do, where I've got to essentially walk the talk, if you will, so that I have that level of certainty and experience when I'm taking a client down a similar path. So it's helpful twofold in that, first and foremost, personally, for my own internal experience, of course, I'm going to want to avoid feeling unnecessary amounts of negative emotion wherever possible. But then also a complementary benefit of that is that it is very conducive to then being able to get more
objectivity and centeredness and balance in the people that I'm working with as well.
Yeah, awesome. So this is basically the first stage, which is talking about, the spirit, the energy, feelings and emotions and values. Now let's pivot to the second segment, which is more the hardship and adversities. So here, feel free to open up as much as you want. But the first question here is, what are some key obstacles and adversities that you've experienced in the past, and how did you overcome them to get to where you are today? Because obviously right now you're in a very good shape. You're very motivated, very driven, very healthy. But what were the key obstacles? Because you said you have to walk the walk, and you have to have been there to help others in the first place. So what are those key obstacles that you were able to overcome? And how did you overcome them?
Yeah, okay. So, there's definitely been many. And I'd say, if I was to kind of group them together, if I may, and put a label on top, I'd say for the vast majority of my life, I was basically living for the expectations of others. I didn't really know what it was, like coming back to values, I didn't really know what my values were.
Yeah.
I didn't know which direction I was going down, so I didn't know where I was headed or why I was heading in that way. So I just kind of, took the path of least resistance, if you will, and just falling in line with what others were doing and pleasing others and meeting the expectations of others. And then I guess what that led to also was that when things happened that perhaps I wasn't happy with, then like as in maybe things didn't go the way that I wanted to, I would say that I had a very strong victim mentality and quite a fixed mindset. So that's not a very great combination when it's like, I have this life that I don't perceive as being particularly good relative to others, and that's because of someone else, because this person's doing this and putting all of these unfair obligations and whatever on me, and there's nothing I can do about it. Right, that's a terrible place to be. And so as a result of that, lack of clarity, and as a result of that kind of victim mindset, I did a lot of things to then kind of numb myself from that, right? So that was, like things like drinking, partying, gambling, that sort of thing, like using substances to kind of dull the deeper questions, kind of sticking my head in the sand for quite a long period of time. And yeah, I guess it really got to there was a bit of a turning point when I was in Thailand one year actually, and I was partying, drinking a lot, and I remember going to bed that night and vomiting. I woke up and I threw up, and then which was strange to me because I'd never woken up in the middle of the night needing to hurl before. Anyway, went back to sleep. Next morning, I was in the bathroom looking in the mirror, and then I was looking at my eyes, and I thought, oh, that doesn't look quite right. It looks a little bit strange. It looks a little bit red down towards the bottom. And then I put my head closer to the mirror, and I noticed it looked like it was like extra bloodshot.
Wow.
Which was strange. I was like, oh. And then as I looked, I saw there was kind of like streaks of red on my cheeks as well. And I was like, immediately I was kind of panicking there. I was like, did I just contract some kind of tropical disease? Like, was it because I put my head in the toilet and there was something going on in the toilet? And then I must have been moving my head around a little bit. And then I noticed that, when I put my eyelids down a little, there was actually, it looked like it was pooling with blood on the bottom of my eyes. It was like solid red. So of course I started to freak out. This was on one of the islands in Thailand, so I went around looking for a doctor. There was like only one doctor on that island.
Oh wow.
So I went there, and he basically told me that my eyes are bleeding.
Oh, wow.
Because, from the vomiting. It was in broken English. He was like, look,
wow.
I'll give you this injection. He jabbed me in the butt with some needle. I didn't even know what was in it. He was like, this will help stop the bleeding.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, through that experience, that was one of the key things that made me kind of think about, well, is this really, what I want to be doing? Drinking so much and just kind of numbing myself and not thinking about what it is that I want, why I want it, and all that sort of thing, and having that level of self-awareness. And they say that change happens in moments of desperation or inspiration. I was just thinking
that, yeah.
And I guess for me, that was definitely one of the key moments of desperation that then led me onto the path of inspiration and growth and learning more about myself and just growing and evolving.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing, because this is very, very raw. And the thing is, I completely understand when you were saying that, in the beginning part of the life, it was just basically going with the flow of things, path of least resistance. Because I felt like that's exactly what I did. And I feel like that's what many people do sometimes, is just do what everyone else is doing, what is socially acceptable, without really questioning why or if it's aligned with their values. And that's what led me to just having my first mental breakdown when I was at the height of at that time, I was 25 as an accountant. And so that's what led me to becoming, a Buddhist monk eventually down the track. But it's just never questioning what was important to me and why am I doing the things that I did. And so, yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I think it's very important that we have that education in place so that we can question these earlier on before it gets too late. I feel like we still took it pretty lightly. I mean, in the sense that we had that growth and that sudden shift a bit earlier, whereas some people might just delay that.
Yeah, it must be something about that age. I was actually 25 at the time of that story as well.
Yeah. So then I guess the question would be, what would be the main key insight in case some people want to learn from your experiences without having to actually go through it, how you did? What would be the key insights that you learned from being in those states of desperation that you're able to now apply in everyday life?
Yeah, so I would say, one of the fundamental insights that I've learned is that, we always have a choice. So what that means is, when we have a quote-unquote victim mentality or a fixed mindset, that means that, we're blaming others first and foremost. So we're the victim of circumstance, and, there's nothing that we can do about it. I am the way that I am. That's a fixed mindset, right? However, we always have a choice. Whether we're consciously choosing to do something down a certain path, that's a choice, or when we're consciously choosing not to do certain things, we're choosing not to do certain things as well. So even though our circumstances may not be as nice or as good or exactly how that we'd like them to be, the reality is that they are exactly the way that they are, and then it's up to us, the choice is ours to then do something about it.
Wow. Yeah, I completely agree with you, but sometimes people, I guess, might not want to take responsibility for that, because it does mean that you have to do it yourself. No one else is going to save you, and sometimes that's like a bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you though.
Absolutely. But then, that is a tough pill to swallow, particularly at the start, just taking that responsibility and, owning the decisions and owning the choices, and then kind of from that place, from that perspective, then what that also allows us to have and adopt is a higher degree of compassion, if you will, for others that are maybe influencing that circumstance or that situation, right? So rather than blaming, if we're taking responsibility, then what that also means is that we can recognize that everyone else is also doing the best that they can.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone else is making the choices that they're doing, based off of what they think is best.
Yeah.
So, they're not necessarily, having any malice, no ill intent to create the quote unquote suboptimal circumstances for you, but rather, they're just doing whatever it is that they're doing based off of whatever they've gone through. And then, it's up to you, or it's up to us to then take that in one of two ways. We can either take that as oh, screw you, I'm a victim, why are you doing this to me? Or the other way to do it is from a more empowering place, from my opinion, of choice, and then choosing to recognize, hey, okay, I see you're doing the best you can.
Yeah.
This is not ideal, not preferred for me, but, rather than seeing it as a burden or something that you're doing to me, I can see that as an opportunity for growth.
Wow, nice. So it's basically seeing the good side as opposed to seeing like blaming and complaining, just focusing our energy on the bright side.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, of course, I get it. It's a lot easier said than done to be able to see the other side of the coin, right? When circumstances or people, they're doing things, we don't like them, they may be suboptimal, not preferred, not ideal, may be very challenging in that time and place, in that situation, to be like, all right, what is the other side here? Like, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I take this in my stride and then move forward, rather than, dwelling on it, sulking, blaming, that sort of thing. Like there's no, it's not conducive to blame and dwell and sulk, but rather, when we adopt the frame that, hey, this is happening, quote unquote, for me and not to me, then that allows us to take that person or take that circumstance or situation in our stride and move forward and grow from that.
Wow, that's some great wisdom. This is what Jeremy does with his coaching, by the way, in terms of helping us deal with challenges, adjusting to change and uncertainty in a way that leads to positive outcomes. So thanks for sharing that insight. Just to finish off the adversities and hardships segment, what are some current challenges that you're currently working with, just so that we can connect to Jeremy now? What are some things that you're finding is that requires management from your part right now?
Yeah, so I would say from an opportunity for growth area for me that I've been diving into in the project that we're working on at the moment with Academy of Infinite Mindset is working with younger clients, if you will, younger students. So these guys are aged, what are they, from like any as young as 5 or 6? Yeah, so you're awesome with them, by the way, because you've got great experience. So high engagement, they love the class, high energy, getting lots from it. Me, on the other hand, I've never really seen myself as that kind of like a primary school teacher role. I've always certainly been more comfortable working with corporate executives, entrepreneurs, older like adults or younger adults. So this is certainly it's a different and a new area and realm for me to dive into. But we are multifaceted individuals. We're constantly learning, we're constantly growing. If there's ever a role or situation that I previously identified myself as, well, hey, I'm not that, then that's an opportunity to go, okay, well, what do I need to do or what do I need to learn in order to be that?
Wow.
Or at least be more competent at that.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that's a great live example of a new area, new challenge, an area of growth that I certainly haven't had to delve into very much at all in recent years that I'm diving into now.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for sharing. And so now let's finish the segment. The final segment is more hopeful and positive. So basically it's future pacing. So what are some things that you're looking forward to in the future that give you that excitement and drive and energy?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, it's Academy of Infinite Mindset.
Yeah, nice.
Right. So you mentioned just earlier today, we did another workshop at Chatswood Primary Way, and we've done another workshop there before the other week. We've been doing some classes and workshops at Siggy, another tutoring college at Hurstville as well.
Yeah.
So really excited and really looking forward to doing more and more of those classes and workshops and reaching more and more young people, which, as I mentioned earlier on in the conversation, it seems like this type of work is needed more now than ever before because of the amount of change, the amount of uncertainty, the amount of technological advancement that is going on. I've shared this with you before, but one of my mentors, who's an executive of a large organization here in Australia, we were having a conversation about what it would look like in the future, with the rate of change of technology, and from a people point of view, what should we be focusing on? What are those core areas, competencies, skills when these students that we're working with, they're not going to enter the workforce for another decade, right? And so he shared with me kind of 4 key themes. So theme number 1 was around having that deep technical expertise, right? So for that, we have academic learning, we have universities, we've got colleges and training facilities for that deep technical expertise. Number 2 is being adept with technology. So, I could say that kids these days, the students, they've got phones, iPads, computers, so they're well on the path of that, and there's coding schools and additional classes of that nature that can also help them pursue that technological capability further as well. Number 3, there's always going to be a place for the communicator, so the storyteller, the empathizer. And so, the primary way, Scott over there gives the public speaking classes. That's a great opportunity to further that skill. But having, debating and those types of classes and interactions really helps those students develop those communication skills. But number 4, and this is where we identified that there is a real need and opportunity at the moment, is around that ability to adapt and be behaviorally flexible, irrespective of change and in the midst of uncertainty. Unless the students, parents or teachers are highly adept in that way, they're thriving amidst uncertainty and change, which one can assume probably isn't the case for a lot of them, unfortunately. We're not really taught these skills. That's a fundamental piece of the work that we're doing, right? It's being able to equip students at a younger and younger age with these types of skills, frameworks, practices, including meditation, including mindfulness, including the ability to pause, accept, see the other side of situations, so that the students can be okay and thrive, irrespective of circumstance, right? That's what it means to still continue to perform highly and perform optimally amidst all that change and uncertainty. It's the ability to continue to execute, knowing that, maybe the outcome might be good, maybe the outcome might be bad, maybe if this happens, that might not be ideal, that might not be optimal, but either way, I'm going to be okay. Because I can learn from that, I can grow from that, and there's going to be benefits from that.
Oh man, I can definitely see the importance of feeling like whatever happens, it's going to be okay, compared to like, if this doesn't work, I'm screwed. So definitely very important. So just to go back on what you was talking about, the 4 key areas, because understanding that the children that are at school today are not going into the workforce today, but they're planning for a future that's about a decade from now, and we don't know from a technological standpoint how different it will be. So the 4 areas that you mentioned was having the technical skill set, technological understanding, communication, which is very important. That's the only thing that technology can't replace, or AI can't replace. And then the 4th one being able to adapt to change and uncertainty. Yeah. And so the next question would be, to manifest the future that you want to achieve, besides these 4, what other things do you feel like you need to develop to be able to manifest that future you want on a personal level?
Yeah, sure. So from a personal point of view, I would say that I've done a lot of work in the past around, like mindset, mental work, if you will.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that we're talking about around seeing the other side of situations so that I can come out from a more empowering position and the ability to make better choices from that and create better or more optimal outcomes.
Yeah.
The area that I focused on less, that I am now focusing on more for my own evolution and growth, is on the level of the body.
Hey, nice.
Right? So, we've had many conversations about the mind-body connection.
Yeah.
And so, one of the areas that I'm focusing on more is on the level of the body. So by that, I mean kind of a whole bunch of different facets of the body, but I view that in order for me to do the things that I want to do for as long as I want to do, not only do I want to have a healthy mind, but of course I want to have a healthy body as well. And I mean that beyond things like diet and beyond things like training, which, I'm doing kind of more and more as well. But it's looking into things like breath work. Right? So breath work is something at the level of the body. It's something that it's a very unique process if any of the listeners haven't done it before. But essentially, what it is it's consciously using your breath to kind of change the way that you feel. And, you can release and express a lot of energy. There's one of the tenets of the work is that things can get trapped. By things I mean emotions and that sort of thing. They can get trapped inside the body. So by using breath work as one of the modalities to become more flexible, if you will, then that's releasing more and more of that energy in the body. Another way that I've been exploring the framework of the body as a vehicle for growth is I've been seeing a new chiropractor as well, which is a different type of chiropractic. I'm not going to go into too much detail of it in this conversation here, but essentially, it's not your traditional go in there, get cracked, get realigned, like using physical force. It's actually a lot more gentle, if you will. At times it feels like he's not even kind of touching me much at all. But he might be touching me very lightly or not touching me at all, and then my body's moving. So it's a specific type of
What's it called? Is there a name for this?
Yeah, it's called network care.
Network care.
Yeah, so check it out. Tony Robbins gets it. He's very good friends with the founder of that field, and essentially, it's very well aligned with that methodology that I mentioned earlier on, that views the client as having that underlying intelligence or wisdom or that statue of David within themselves, right? So this is a style of work on the body through a light touch chiropractic that allows the body, if you will, to do a lot of the work.
In terms of realignment, releasing unwanted energies, just basically letting the body do their own work. Do their own work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, dude. That's amazing. And so the last question would be, you've had a very amazing life so far. You've experienced so many things. What would be the key messages or insights that you'd like to share so that the viewers are able to learn vicariously through you without having to suffer all the pains and struggles you've had to, but still extract a bit of that wisdom from you?
Yeah. So I think there's one line from a book that I love which summarizes or ties up a lot of the learnings or insights that I mentioned in this conversation, and it's by Eckhart Tolle. A New Earth.
Oh, dude,
so I think
you've
got it up there. And I've listened to the audio book version, which I love because he's got this really deep and interesting tone to his voice. So I would highly recommend anyone go check out that book. But essentially, the line goes like this. So Eckhart says that, and I'm going to paraphrase here. He essentially says, you are continually going to be presented with people and circumstances at the perfect time in order for you to evolve and grow.
Wow. Man, I'm getting shivers just from that line.
And so it's the way that he frames it in the book, it's kind of like a dialogue. So he's telling someone, a listener, and then the listener responds to him and goes, but how do I know this is what I need? Like, how do I know this is the right time? And then he says, because this is the experience that you're having.
In terms of whatever experience you're having is the experience you should be having at that exact moment. Every single time.
Every single time. So every single time we come across a person or circumstance, we come across that person or circumstance at the exact time that we need them in order for us to evolve and grow. So from that underarching or overarching frame, there is no victim mindset. There is no fixed mindset. There is only kind of choice and empowerment and options, because we can view every situation that we have, every person that comes our way, every circumstance that comes our way,
good or bad,
right? Which previously maybe we would have viewed it as just bad, no good. We would have blamed. If we view it from a perspective of, I am always going to be given a person or circumstance that I need in that moment in order for me to evolve and grow, then that changes everything.
Honestly, it seems so hard to accept when you go back to work and your boss is just hounding you, and then to have the insight to think, I need this right now, or I can make use of this right now, this is for my growth. Having faith in that really shifts the energy that you bring into everyday life. But it seems very difficult, but I completely agree that your perception has a very big impact in the way you experience the world. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And I mean, even in that example you gave there of, I'm going to go to work and I've got all these people yelling at me, if it's clients or boss or whatever, then, like practically speaking, how could we play that out with that frame of, well, this client yelling at me, they're what I need right now in order for me to evolve and grow. This boss yelling at me, he's what I need to evolve and grow. So how, right? I guess we could look at, well, what is it bringing up for me when this person is yelling at me? How is that making me feel?
So like stress, anxiety, discomfort, pressure.
Right. And if so, why? Like, is there something that this is bringing up for me that I haven't necessarily resolved? Is it, is resilience something that I've typically not worked on much before? Do I not view myself as a very resilient person? Maybe that's an area for me to grow in. Do I need to say no to more people? Do I need to set firmer boundaries? Let's give that a go and see how that goes. Do I need to stand up for myself more? Do I need to listen more? Do I need to stay quiet more maybe? And if the answer to all of those is, well, I'm already doing all of that. I'm already standing up for myself. I'm already setting boundaries. I'm already this, I'm already that. Then, maybe it's, am I being gifted this opportunity to change how I perceive or how I relate to the situation in another way? Or is it that I'm being gifted with this situation because that's just the little push that I need to finally make that decision or make that choice to go do something else?
Yeah.
And then if the answer is, well, I think maybe it's that, but I don't know what that something else is, then, maybe is this the opportunity that life is gifting me to go figure what that thing is? Am I going to go and do the work and work out what my values are and make a plan on how I can structure my life so that it can be filled with these high value things that I can fulfill and feel fulfilled on a day-to-day basis, rather than my days just being filled by other people's priorities. Maybe that's the opportunity in this situation. But whatever the case may be, no matter what person or circumstance comes our way, from that frame, we will be okay because we know it's for our own evolution and growth.
Yeah, completely understand that, because as a Buddhist monk, and there's when I was a Buddhist monk, there's a saying, but not just in Buddhism, but the saying is, the obstacle is the way. The obstacle is the path. And in Buddhism, what they mean is, the problem is only a problem because you haven't transcended it yet. And so situations like the boss hounding you or conflicts and stuff like that, they're only problems because we haven't transcended or developed the skills to transcend it. And so the moment we develop straight away, those situations are basically just highlighting to us where the weaknesses are, where the areas for development is, where we need to pay our attention, to the point where in the future, once we're developed and we've transcended it, if the same thing happens, it could just be like water off a duck's back, or it could just be like nothing. There's no negative emotional charge there, and that's how you know I've transcended it. But if you haven't transcended it yet, then in Buddhism, they would say that they're actually pointing to you what areas need attention. Is that what you mean as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's funny because used to be my favorite book that I would gift to a lot of people. I used to actually wear it on a necklace around my neck, and it was The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And it's a bit of a stoic phrase as well. And I believe when you flipped the little pendant around, on the back of it, it read something which was pretty beautiful. I think I'm going to remember it. It's, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The obstacle is the way.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And so I guess before we finish, how can people find you, Jeremy, if they want to work with you or learn with you or see what you're doing in life? How can people reach out?
Yeah, sure. So, if you're into performance coaching, if you're an executive, if you're an entrepreneur, then check out my website, jeremykoh.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Jeremy Koh. Otherwise, if you're a parent and you've got some students interested in the mindfulness coaching or planning and accountability practices that we've touched on, then check out Academy of Infinite Mindset. Website is aimforsuccess.com.au.
Yep, links down below as well. Jeremy, it's been an honor to have you as the first guest for the MPT podcast. And before we finish, what are some final words you'd like to leave with the viewers today?
We are continually being presented with people and circumstances at just the right time we need them in order for us to evolve and grow. If we can continually remember that and keep that front of mind, then I guarantee you your perspectives and your life will change.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. It's been an honor. And thanks again. Very grateful. Looking forward to working more with you over the years. And thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Bye for now. Okay, dude. High five, nice. Bro. That was sweet as.